Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, "My sister-in-law tried to sabotage our adoption plan." My husband Tony and I had been trying to have a baby for years. After multiple rounds of failed IVF treatments, we decided to pursue adoption. It was a difficult decision, but we were excited about growing our family and giving a loving home to a child in need. When we first announced our plans to adopt to our families, everyone seemed supportive. Tony's parents were thrilled at the prospect of becoming grandparents. My own family lived across the country, but sent their love and encouragement. The only person who seemed less than enthusiastic was Tony's sister, Melissa. "Are you sure about this?" she asked skeptically when we told her. "I mean, raising someone else's kid? It just seems like a lot to take on." I was taken aback by her reaction. "It won't be someone else's kid, Melissa. It'll be our child," I said firmly. Tony jumped in to smooth things over. "We've given this a lot of thought, sis. We're ready for the next step." Melissa shrugged. "If you say so, I just hope you know what you're getting into." I tried to not let her negativity dampen my excitement. Melissa had always been a bit prickly, so I chalked it up to her usual pessimism. I tried to not let her negativity dampen my excitement. Little did I know this was just the beginning of her attempts to derail our adoption journey. Over the next few months, Tony and I threw ourselves into the adoption process. We attended information sessions, filled out mountains of paperwork, and started preparing our home for a child. It was overwhelming at times, but we supported each other through the stress and uncertainty. About 2 months in, we hit our first major hurdle. The adoption agency required character references from family members as part of our application. We had asked Tony's parents, my sister, and Melissa to provide references. Tony's parents and my sister sent theirs in right away with glowing recommendations. But Melissa's reference was nowhere to be found. "Did you remind Melissa about the reference letter?" I asked Tony one evening. The deadline was approaching and I was starting to worry. "Yeah, I texted her last week," he replied. "She said she'd take care of it." I frowned. "Maybe you should follow up again. The agency needs it by Friday." They nodded and pulled out his phone to call Melissa. Tony nodded and pulled out his phone to call Melissa. I could hear the conversation from across the room. "Hey Mel, just checking in about that reference letter for the adoption agency." "Uh-huh." "Wait, what? No, that can't be right." I looked up in concern as Tony's voice grew more agitated. When he hung up, his face was pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. Tony ran a hand through his hair. "Melissa says she already sent in the reference letter weeks ago, but she says she couldn't in good conscience recommend us as adoptive parents." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What? Why would she do that?" "She claims she has concerns about our ability to provide a stable home," Tony said, his voice tight with anger. She said she didn't want to lie to the agency." I was stunned. Sure, Melissa had seemed unenthusiastic about our adoption plans, but I never imagined she would actively try to sabotage us. "What are we going to do?" I asked, fighting back tears. "The agency won't approve us without all the references." Tony pulled me into a hug. "We'll figure it out. I'll talk to Melissa again and make her see reason. If not, we'll explain the situation to the agency. They have to understand that one negative reference from a sister-in-law doesn't outweigh all the positive ones, right?" I nodded, trying to stay positive, but I couldn't shake the sick feeling in my stomach. Why was Melissa so determined to keep us from adopting? How far would she go to stop us? The next day, Tony went to confront Melissa in person while I called the adoption agency in a panic. The caseworker I spoke to was sympathetic but firm. "I'm sorry, but we do need all the requested references to move forward," she explained. "If there are extenuating circumstances with one of the references, you're welcome to provide a written explanation that we can add to your file. But ultimately, all parts of the application need to be complete for us to consider placement." I relayed this information to Tony when he got home from Melissa's. He looked exhausted and frustrated. "How did it go with Melissa?" I asked hesitantly. Tony sighed heavily. "Not great. She refuses to change her reference, saying she was just being honest about her concerns." "What concerns?" I demanded. "We're stable. We both have good jobs. We've been taking all the parenting classes. What possible issues could she have?" "It's ridiculous," Tony said. "She brought up that time in college when I got too drunk at a party and had to get my stomach pumped. Said it shows I have substance abuse issues. And she mentioned how we moved twice in the past 5 years for job opportunities. According to her, that means we can't provide a stable environment. I was speechless. Those were such minor things, blown completely out of proportion. She's really reaching, I said. There has to be something else going on here. Tony nodded grimly. I think you're right. When I pressed her on it, she finally admitted that she doesn't think we should adopt because we gave up too easily on having biological children. My blood began to boil. Gave up too easily? We tried for years. We went through so much heartbreak with the failed IVF treatments. How dare she trivialize this? I know, Tony said soothingly. I told her she was way out of line, but she wouldn't budge. We spent the next week scrambling to salvage our adoption application. We wrote a long letter to the agency explaining the situation with Melissa and providing additional character references. We spent the next week scrambling to salvage our adoption application. We wrote a long letter to the agency explaining the situation with Melissa and providing additional character references from friends and coworkers. We also reached out to a lawyer friend for advice on how to proceed if the agency rejected our application due to the missing family reference. While we waited anxiously to hear back from the agency, Melissa's sabotage attempts continued. She started calling our relatives, telling them we were rushing into adoption without thinking it through. She even contacted Tony's boss, supposedly out of concern that the stress of adoption might affect his work performance. But Melissa didn't stop there. Her interference began to escalate in increasingly alarming ways. One day, I received a call from our landlord asking if everything was okay with our apartment. Of course, I said, confused. Why do you ask? The landlord hesitated. Well, I received an anonymous tip that you were running an illegal daycare out of the apartment. I had to follow up on it. I was floored. That's absolutely not true, I assured him. We don't even have any children yet. We're in the process of adopting. After I got off the phone, I immediately called Tony. You won't believe this, I told him, relaying the conversation with their landlord. Tony was silent for a moment. It had to be Melissa, he said finally. She's the only one who would do something like this. I agreed. It was a devious move. If we had been found to be violating our lease, it could have jeopardized our housing stability and potentially our adoption application. A few days later, another incident occurred. I was at work when my boss called me into her office looking concerned. Erica, is everything all right at home? She asked gently. I was puzzled. Yes, everything's fine. Why? She looked uncomfortable. Well, I received an email from someone claiming to be your sister-in-law. She expressed concern about your mental health and suggested you might need to take a leave of absence. I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. I'm so sorry about that, I said. My sister-in-law is, well, she's having some issues of her own. I can assure you my mental health is perfectly fine. My boss nodded, looking relieved. I thought it seemed out of character for you. Don't worry about it. I just wanted to check in. I left her office feeling shaken. Melissa was now targeting our jobs and our home. How far would she go? The final straw came when we discovered that Melissa had been reaching out to local adoption support groups, posing as a concerned friend. She spread rumors about us, claiming we were unstable and unprepared for adoption. She even went so far as to suggest that we were only pursuing adoption as a last resort and didn't really want a child. We found out about this when a woman from one of the support groups, someone we had never met, reached out to us on social media. I'm not sure if I should be telling you this, her message read, but someone has been saying some pretty awful things about you in our adoption support group. I didn't feel right about it and thought you should know. I was devastated. The adoption community was small in our area, and I feared Melissa's lies could spread and potentially reach the ears of social workers or potential birth mothers. Your sister has lost her mind, I fumed to Tony after showing him the message. Why is she so determined to keep us from having a family? Tony looked troubled. I think I might know why, he said slowly. Remember how Melissa and her husband were trying for a baby too? I nodded. They had gotten married around the same time as us and had also been struggling with infertility. Well, I found out from Mom that they just got some bad news, Tony continued. Apparently, the doctors told them it's extremely unlikely they'll ever be able to conceive naturally, and they can't afford IVF or adoption right now because her husband just lost his job. My anger deflated, replaced by a complicated mix of sympathy and frustration. I could understand Melissa's pain on some level. The years of infertility treatments had been an emotional roller coaster for us too. But That didn't excuse her attempts to sabotage our adoption. I feel for her, I really do, I told Tony, but we can't let her derail our plans. We've worked too hard for this. Tony agreed. I'll try talking to her one more time. Maybe if I approach it from a place of empathy, she'll come around. But Melissa was unmoved by Tony's attempts at reconciliation. If anything, her efforts to undermine us intensified. She started posting vague but concerning comments on social media about how some people just aren't cut out to be parents. When mutual friends asked her about it, she would imply that she had inside knowledge of serious issues that made us unfit to adopt. The stress was taking a toll on both Tony and me. We were constantly on edge, wondering what Melissa might do next. I had trouble sleeping and found myself checking my phone obsessively for news from the adoption agency. Tony was withdrawn and irritable, torn between loyalty to his sister and his dreams of fatherhood. Melissa's campaign of interference reached new heights when she somehow got hold of our social worker's contact information. She left a voicemail claiming to be an anonymous concerned citizen, with information about our unsuitability as adoptive parents. Fortunately, our social worker recognized the accusations as baseless and informed us about the call. I want you to know that we take these kinds of reports seriously, she told us during our next meeting, but in this case, the claims were so outlandish and unsupported that we've disregarded them. However, I do need to ask, do you have any idea who might be behind this? Tony and I exchanged a look before Tony spoke up. We believe it's my sister, he said heavily. She's been struggling with our decision to adopt and has been acting out in various ways. The social worker nodded sympathetically. Family dynamics can be complicated, especially around adoption. I appreciate your honesty about the situation. As we left the meeting, I felt a mix of relief that the social worker hadn't been swayed by Melissa's lies. Finally, after weeks of agonizing uncertainty, we got the call we'd been waiting for. The adoption agency wanted to meet with us to discuss our application. We went to the meeting full of nervous anticipation. Our caseworker, a kind-faced woman, greeted us warmly. First, I want to thank you for your patience during this process, she began. We've reviewed all the materials you submitted, including your letter explaining the situation with your sister-in-law. Tony and I exchanged an anxious glance. This was it, the moment of truth. She continued, while we always prefer to have all requested references, we understand that family dynamics can be complicated. In your case, the overwhelmingly positive feedback from your other references, combined with your demonstrated commitment throughout this process, has convinced us to move forward with your application. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Tony squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with emotion. Really? I asked, hardly daring to believe it. So we're approved? She smiled. You're approved. Congratulations. We believe you'll make wonderful parents. Tony and I both burst into tears of joy and relief. All the stress and anxiety of the past months melted away in that moment. We were going to be parents. As we left the agency office, practically floating on air, Tony turned to me with a determined look. We need to tell Melissa, he said. I know she's been awful, but she's still family. Maybe once she realizes that this is really happening, she'll come around. I was skeptical, but agreed to let Tony break the news to his sister. He called her that evening and invited her over to talk. Melissa arrived looking weary. What's this about? She asked as she sat stiffly on our couch. Tony took a deep breath. Mel, we wanted you to hear this from us directly. The adoption agency has approved our application. We're going to be parents. Melissa's face went through a rapid series of emotions, shock, anger, and finally, a kind of resigned bitterness. So that's it then? She said flatly. You're really going through with this? I felt a flare of irritation at her reaction, but tried to stay calm. Yes, we are, I said. Melissa, I know this must be difficult for you given your own situation, but we're your family. Can't you find it in your heart to be happy for us? She laughed harshly. Happy? You want me to be happy that my brother is making the biggest mistake of his life? Tony frowned. Mel, that's enough. We've put up with your negativity and sabotage attempts for months, but this is happening whether you like it or not. You need to accept that. Melissa stood up, her face flushed with anger. Accept it? Never. That agency is making a huge mistake. Maybe they'll change their minds when they find out all about the skeletons in your closet. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I demanded. She smirked. Oh, you know, Tony's little substance abuse problem in college, your family's history of mental illness, all those things I helpfully shared in my reference letter. Tony looked stricken. Melissa, how could you? None of that is true and you know it. It doesn't matter if it's true, Melissa spat. All that matters is creating doubt. One anonymous tip to the agency about potential issues and your precious adoption dreams go up in smoke. I'd had enough. I stood up and pointed to the door. Get out, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Get out of our house right now. Melissa grabbed her purse and stalked toward the door. But before leaving, she turned back with a cruel smile. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts. It's only a matter of time before everyone sees what I see. You two have no business raising a child. As soon as she was gone, I collapsed onto the couch in tears. Tony held me close, murmuring soothing words. What are we going to do? I sobbed. She's not going to stop. She'll find a way to ruin this for us. Tony's voice was steady and determined. We're not going to let that happen. We've come too far to give up now. Over the next few days, we sprang into action. We met with our lawyer friend and drafted a cease and desist letter warning Melissa that any further attempts to interfere with her adoption would result in legal action. We also reached out to the adoption agency to get ahead of any potential anonymous tips from Melissa. To our relief, our caseworker at the agency was understanding about the situation. Unfortunately, we do sometimes see cases where family members try to sabotage adoptions out of jealousy or misplaced concerns, she told us. Please be assured that we don't take anonymous accusations seriously without substantial evidence. Your application was approved based on a thorough review process, not just character references. Still, we knew we couldn't completely relax as long as Melissa was on the warpath. We decided to take steps to distance ourselves from her toxic influence. We blocked Melissa's number and on social media. We also warned family members not to pass any information about us or the adoption to her. It was a tense few months as we waited to be matched with a child. Every time the phone rang, I feared it would be the agency calling to tell us Melissa had somehow torpedoed our chances, but slowly, as weeks passed without incident, we began to feel more secure. Finally, the day we'd been dreaming of arrived. Sandra called with the news that we'd been matched with the baby boy, due in just 2 months. We were overjoyed and started preparing for our son's arrival. As the big day approached, we debated whether to tell Melissa about the baby. Part of me wanted to extend an olive branch, to give her one last chance to be part of this momentous occasion. But a larger part feared she might make a last-ditch effort to interfere. In the end, we decided to wait until after the adoption was finalized to reach out to Melissa. It was a hard choice, but we needed to put our new family first. The day we brought our son home from the hospital was the happiest day of my life. As I watched Tony cradle our tiny boy, marveling at his perfect fingers and toes, all the stress and pain of the past year faded away. This was what we'd fought for so hard. This was what Melissa had tried to prevent us from experiencing. A week after we brought the baby home, we sent a birth announcement to the whole family, including Melissa. We included a heartfelt note. Melissa, we know the past year has been difficult for us all. While we can't forget the pain caused by your actions, we're choosing to focus on the future. If you're willing to accept our choice and support our new family, we'd love for you to be a part of your nephew's life. The choice is yours. With hope for healing, Tony and Erica. We didn't hear back from Melissa right away. Weeks passed with no response. I tried to not let it bother me. As we settled into life with our new son, we were too busy changing diapers, figuring out feeding schedules, and soaking up every precious moment with our baby to dwell on family drama. Then about a month after we sent the announcement, a small package arrived in the mail. Inside was a soft baby blanket. There was no card or anything else to identify who it had come from. But after asking around a little, we got a good idea of who exactly was the sender. Melissa. It wasn't much, but it was a start. There was still a long way to go in rebuilding our relationship with Melissa. The hurt and mistrust wouldn't disappear overnight, but as I wrapped our son in his new blanket from his aunt, I felt a glimmer of hope. Sometimes families are formed in unexpected ways. Ours came together through adoption, perseverance, and ultimately forgiveness. It wasn't an easy journey, but holding our son in my arms, I knew it was worth every struggle. We were finally home. Here are my thoughts about the story. Can we talk about Melissa before we get into anything else? Holy pasta. I haven't been this frustrated with the character since Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter. The way she kept trying to sabotage Tony and Erica's adoption process had me gripping my chair. I mean, calling their landlord about a fake daycare? Emailing Erica's boss about mental health concerns? That's not just pettiness. That's outright being malicious. But you know what really got me? It was when we found out why Melissa was acting like such a mega witch. Learning that she and her husband had just received bad news about their own fertility struggles? It doesn't excuse her behavior. Not by a long shot. But it does make her a bit more human, you know? I've seen how infertility can mess with people's heads. And it's rough. That being said, where was her husband in all of this? Was he seriously letting her run around like this? Clearly hurt and lashing out without giving her the support that she needed? I mean, maybe he needed to help too, but damn, they needed to step up for each other, not let their partner run loose and worsen their mental health like that. That said, I wanted to reach through my screen and give Tony and Erica the biggest hug ever. The strength and resilience they showed throughout this whole ordeal was seriously inspiring. I mean, can you imagine trying to navigate the already stressful adoption process while your own family is actively trying to tank your chances? That's some superhero level perseverance right there. And let's talk about that adoption agency for a second. Major props to the caseworker and the team for seeing through Melissa's BS and giving Tony and Erica a fair shot. It's heartening to know that there are professionals out there who can recognize when someone's just stirring up drama. There were moments in the story where I was ready to write Melissa off completely. What was the saying? Right. Bye, Felicia. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But that ending, it's making me think a little. That little note with the baby blanket, it got me good. It's such a small gesture, but it speaks volumes about the possibility of healing and forgiveness. And can we give a shout out to Tony and Erica for how they handled everything? They stood their ground, protected their dream of becoming parents, but still left the door open for reconciliation with Melissa. That takes some serious emotional maturity and compassion. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you believe Melissa deserves a second chance? Can you see a path forward for healing in this family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on it. Also, if any of you have gone through the adoption process or dealt with family drama around starting a family, my heart goes out to you. This stuff isn't easy, and stories like this remind us of the complex emotions and challenges involved. And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. My wife's family tried to control our finances. I always considered myself a pretty average guy, 32 years old, working as an accountant, married to my college sweetheart, Julia. We had a nice little house in the suburbs, went on vacation once a year, and we were starting to talk about having kids. Everything was going great until Julia's family decided they needed to help with our finances. It all started about 6 months ago. Julia and I had been married for 3 years at that point. We both had good jobs. I was doing well at my accounting firm, and Julia was climbing the ladder at our marketing agency. We weren't rich by any means, but we were comfortable and had been steadily saving for our future. One Sunday, we were having our usual family dinner at Julia's parents' house. Her mom, Monica, and dad, Colin, were there, along with her older brother, Noah, and his wife of 7 years. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Monica and Colin expressed concern about our financial situation. They suggested that we weren't saving enough or investing wisely, despite our assurances that we had a solid financial plan in place. The entire conversation was a mess. What started as a seemingly well-intentioned talk about responsibility quickly escalated into something more alarming. Monica and Colin insisted on taking a more active role in our finances, going so far as to demand access to our bank accounts and credit card statements. It was honestly crazy to go through. We were all just sitting around the dining room table when Monica cleared her throat. "So, kids," she said, looking at Julia and me, "your father and I have been talking, and we were a bit concerned about your financial situation." I nearly choked on my mashed potatoes. "Our financial situation?" I repeated, confused. Colin chimed in. "Well, we know you're both working hard, but we just want to make sure that you're making the right decisions for your future. You know, maximizing your savings, investing wisely, that sort of thing." I glanced at Julia, who looked as puzzled as I felt. "We appreciate the concern," I said carefully, "but we're doing fine. We've got a good savings plan. We're contributing to our 401ks. That's great, Monica interrupted, but we think you could be doing more. We've been talking to Noah about it, and he agrees. I turned to Noah, who suddenly seemed very interested in his green beans. Is that right, Noah? I asked. Noah shrugged, not meeting my eyes. I mean, Mom and Dad have a point. You guys could probably be saving more aggressively. With all due respect, I said, trying to keep my voice level, Julia and I are adults. We're managing our finances just fine. Monica waved her hand dismissively. Oh, we know you think you are, dear, but we've been around the block a few more times than you. We just want to help. Julia finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, we appreciate your concern, but Dylan's right. We're doing okay. Well, Colin said, leaning back in his chair, we've decided we want to take a more active role in helping you manage your money for your own good. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Take a more active role? What exactly does that mean? Monica smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We think it would be best if we had access to your bank accounts and credit card statements, just to keep an eye on things. You understand? The room fell silent. I looked at Julia, who seemed as shocked as I was. Absolutely not, I said firmly. That's completely out of the question. Now, Dylan, Colin said, his voice taking on a patronizing tone, don't be hasty. We're just trying to help. We don't need that kind of help, I insisted. Our finances are private, and we're managing them just fine on our own. Monica's smile vanished. I don't think you understand, Dylan. We're not asking. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I think we're done here. Julia, let's go. Julia hesitated for a moment, looking between me and her parents. Then she stood up too. Mom, Dad, I love you, but Dylan's right. This isn't okay. As we left, I could hear Monica calling after. You'll see we're right. You'll thank us later. The car ride home was tense. Julia was quiet, staring out the window. Finally, I broke the silence. Are you okay? She sighed. I can't believe they did that. I'm so sorry, Dylan. It's not your fault, I assured her. But we need to be clear that this can't happen. We can't let them interfere in our finances like that. Julia nodded. I know. I'll talk to them tomorrow, make sure they understand. Over the next few weeks, Monica and Colin kept pushing. They'd call Julia almost daily, asking about our spending habits, criticizing our financial decisions. They even showed up at our house unannounced one Saturday morning with a stack of financial planning books and a demand to see our recent bank statements. They planted themselves on our couch, ignoring my protest as they practically barged in to wait for us to have an adult conversation when we were ready. I retreated to the bedroom where Julia was just waking up. Your parents are here, I told her, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. Julia groaned. Again? What do they want now? Same thing as always. They want to go over our finances. Julia buried her face in her pillow. I can't deal with this anymore. Can you just show them some bank statements or something to get them off our backs? I stared at her, dumbfounded. Are you serious? Julia, if we give in now, they'll never stop. We need to stand our ground. She sighed. I know. You're right. I'll talk to them. But when we went out to the living room, it quickly became clear that talking wasn't going to solve anything. Monica and Colin were adamant that they needed to help us with our finances, and nothing we said could dissuade them. Over the next few weeks, Monica and Colin's interference intensified. They called Julia almost daily, questioning our spending habits and criticizing our financial decisions. They'd ask invasive questions about our salaries, our savings, and even our retirement plans. It wasn't just annoying. It was starting to feel like a violation of our privacy. Their attempts to control our finances became increasingly bold and concerning. One day, we received a call from our bank informing us that someone claiming to be Julia's mother had tried to access our account information. We had to spend hours on the phone with the bank, reinforcing our privacy settings and explicitly stating that no one else should have access to our accounts. Another time, we discovered that Monica had somehow obtained one of our credit card statements. She showed up at our house, waving the paper and demanding explanations for what she deemed frivolous spending, which included things like our gym memberships and a modest dinner out for our anniversary. We were shocked and angry, not just at the invasion of privacy, but at the audacity of thinking she had any right to question our spending. The situation escalated further when Colin took it upon himself to surprise us by meeting with a financial advisor on our behalf. He proudly presented us with a complete financial plan, including recommendations for aggressive savings, investments, and even a timeline for when we should purchase a larger home and start having children. The fact that he shared our personal financial information with a stranger was bad enough, but the presumption that he could plan out our entire financial future without our input was infuriating. Julia's parents didn't stop there. They began to interfere with our careers as well, apparently believing that controlling our income was another way to control our finances. Monica started calling Julia's boss, inquiring about promotion opportunities, and even suggesting that Julia deserved a raise. Meanwhile, Colin took it upon himself to email partners from my accounting firm, recommending me for projects that he thought would fast-track my career. These work interferences were not only embarrassing, but potentially damaging to our professional reputations. We had to have awkward conversations with our employers, apologizing for our parents' behavior and assuring them that it wouldn't happen again. The pressure from Julia's family was taking a toll on our marriage. Julia was constantly torn between loyalty to her parents and standing up for our independence. We started arguing more, mostly about how to handle her family's interference. There were moments when Julia, worn down by her parents' relentless pressure, would suggest giving in and just getting them off our backs. But I knew if we gave them an inch, they'd take a mile. Maybe we should just let them look at our bank statements, Julia suggested one night after a particularly heated phone call with her mom, just to get them off our backs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Julia, no, absolutely not. If we give in now, they'll never stop. Don't you see that? She burst into tears. I just can't take it anymore, Dylan. They're my parents. I hate feeling like I have to choose between you and them. I softened, pulling her into a hug. I know it's hard, honey, but we're not asking them to choose. We're just asking them to respect our boundaries. Our situation came to a head about 4 months after that first dinner. Julia and I had just gotten home from work when we found out Monica and Colin were waiting on our front porch. They had come with a proposal, or rather, a demand. They had set up a trust fund for us and wanted to take over the management of all our finances, including depositing our paychecks into the trust and managing all of our expenses. I was shocked and angry, but what really floored me was that Julia seemed to be considering it. The argument that followed was one of the worst in our marriage. I couldn't believe she would even entertain the idea of letting her parents control our money like we were children. Eventually, Julia sided with me, and we asked her parents to leave. After they left, Julia broke down crying. I held her, my own emotions a mix of anger, frustration, and relief that she had finally stood up to her parents. What are we going to do? She sobbed. They're never going to stop. I took a deep breath. I think we need to talk to a lawyer. After this incident, we knew and agreed on the fact that we needed professional help. We met with the family law attorney, who informed us that what Julia's parents were doing constituted financial abuse, a form of domestic violence. She recommended starting with the cease and desist letter, and if that didn't work, considering a restraining order. We decided to go ahead with the cease and desist letter. The lawyer drafted it, detailing all of Monica's and Colin's attempts to control our finances and demanding that they stop immediately. The response was explosive, with Monica and Colin alternating between tearful pleas and angry threats. Their behavior only escalated after receiving the letter. They attempted to open credit cards in our names, arguing that they were trying to help build our credit. We had to place freezes on our credit reports to prevent any unauthorized accounts from being opened. They even went so far as to contact our insurance company, trying to add themselves as beneficiaries to our life insurance policies, just in case. One particularly alarming incident occurred when we discovered that Colin had been monitoring our online shopping habits. He had somehow gained access to Julia's email and was tracking her online purchase confirmations. He confronted us with a spreadsheet detailing every online purchase that we'd made over the past 3 months, categorized and color-coded to show what he deemed necessary and wasteful spending. The final straw came when Monica and Colin showed up at our bank, claiming there was a family emergency and they needed access to our accounts. Thankfully, the bank followed protocol and refused to give them any information, but the attempt itself was a stark reminder of how far they were willing to go. That's it, I said to Julia that night. We're getting that restraining order. Julia nodded, looking defeated. I guess we have no choice. After this incident, we decided to go ahead with the restraining order. The process was stressful, requiring us to go to court and present evidence of Monica and Colin's behavior. Julia's parents showed up with their own lawyer, arguing that they were just trying to help and that we were being ungrateful. In the end, the judge sided with us. She granted a restraining order, prohibiting Monica and Colin from contacting us, coming to our home or workplaces, or attempting to access our financial information in any way. As we left the courthouse, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that we would finally have some peace, but sadness for Julia, who was essentially losing her parents. The next few months were hard. Julia struggled with guilt and grief over the estrangement from her parents. We both jumped every time the phone rang, half expecting it to be Monica or Colin violating the restraining order. But slowly, Things got better. We started seeing a couples therapist to work through the stress and strain the situation had put on our marriage. We took a financial planning course together, reinforcing our ability to manage our money as a team. We also took steps to further protect our finances. We changed all of our passwords and security questions, making sure to use information that Julia's parents wouldn't know. We set up two-factor authentication on all of our accounts and opted for paperless statements to ensure no financial information would be sent to our home address where it could potentially be intercepted. It felt paranoid, but after everything we'd been through, we couldn't be too careful. About 6 months after the restraining order was granted, we got an unexpected call from Julia's brother, Noah. "I owe you both an apology," he said when we answered. "I should have stood up to Mom and Dad sooner. What they did to you guys, it wasn't right." Julia teared up. "Thanks, Noah. That means a lot." Noah hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Mom and Dad, they've been going to therapy. They started realizing how wrong their behavior was." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly suppressed. "That's good, I guess. But it doesn't change what happened." "I know," Noah said. "And they know that too. They asked me to tell you that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, they'd like to apologize in person. But they understand if you're not there yet." Julia and I discussed it, but decided we weren't ready for that yet. We needed more time to heal and to firmly establish our independence. Instead, we chose to focus on our future together. This experience, as difficult as it was, taught us valuable lessons about setting boundaries, protecting our privacy, and working as a team. We emerged from it with a stronger relationship and a renewed commitment to our financial independence. We implemented new financial practices, like having monthly budget meetings where we review our expenses and savings goals together. We set up automatic transfers to our savings account to ensure we're consistently putting money aside for our future. We even started researching investment opportunities together, educating ourselves on how to grow our wealth responsibly. One positive outcome of this ordeal was that it forced us to have frank discussions about our financial values and goals. We realized we hadn't always been on the same page about things like how much to save, what constituted a worthwhile expense, or how to balance enjoying the present with preparing for the future. These conversations, while sometimes challenging, ultimately brought us closer together and gave us a shared vision for our financial future. We also became more involved in financial education. Julia started following personal finance blogs and podcasts, while I took some advanced courses in financial planning. We even started a small emergency fund specifically earmarked for legal expenses, just in case we ever needed to defend our financial independence again. As time passed, we found ourselves feeling more confident and secure in our financial decisions. We no longer second-guessed every purchase or felt guilty about occasional indulgences. We knew that we were making informed choices based on our own values and goals, not anyone else's expectations. About a year after the restraining order, we felt secure enough to make big decisions. We started trying for a baby. This choice, made entirely on our own terms, felt like a true celebration of our independence and our future together. Preparing for a baby also gave us new financial goals to work towards. We started a dedicated savings account for child-related expenses, researched the cost of daycare in our area, and looked into life insurance options. These tasks, which might have seemed daunting before, now felt empowering. We were taking control of our family's financial future, making decisions based on our own research and values. As I reflect on this journey, I'm amazed at how far we've come. What started as a nightmare of financial interference turned into a powerful lesson in standing up for ourselves, setting boundaries, and taking control of our financial destiny. Julia and I are closer than ever. Our financial situation is strong, and we're excited about the future that we're building. Our finances are our own. Our decisions are our own, and our future is ours to shape. And that, I've realized, is worth more than any amount of money in the world. While the road to this point was difficult, I wouldn't change it. It taught us resilience, strengthened our marriage, and gave us the tools and confidence to manage our finances successfully. As we prepare for the next chapter of our lives, parenthood, I'm grateful for the strong foundation we've built. Whatever financial challenges come our way, I know we'll face them together, as a team. And that's a kind of security that no trust fund or parental interference could ever provide. Here are my thoughts on the story. Monica and Colin, you are absolute control freaks. I mean, I get it. Parents worry about their kids. But this is next level bonkers. Trying to access their bank accounts, calling their bosses, setting up a trust fund without their permission? It's like they think Julia and Dylan are still 5 years old playing with Monopoly money. The part that really got me was when Colin showed up with that color-coded spreadsheet of their online purchases. Like, dude, did you seriously have nothing better to do with your time? I can just imagine him sitting there, hunched over his computer, muttering to himself as he decides whether buying new socks is necessary or wasteful. Get a hobby, Colin. Or maybe that is his hobby. In that case, that's kind of sad. Therapy for you, therapy for him, therapy for everyone would do a world of good. But hey guys, you know what? As crazy as Monica and Colin were, I gotta give mad props to Dylan and Julia for standing their ground. It couldn't have been easy, especially for Julia. I mean, these are her parents we're talking about. The guilt trip must have been real. But they stuck to their guns and even got a restraining order. They knew their values and were ready to defend their home, no matter who was pressing the big red button of doom. I'll be honest, there were some moments in this story where I wanted to reach through my screen and blast some sense into Julia. Like when she actually considered letting her parents manage their finances through that trust fund. Girl, what were you thinking? But I get it. When you're under that much pressure, sometimes you just want it to stop, even if it means giving in. I'm just glad she came to her senses. The whole situation is a masterclass in how not to parent adult children. It's like Monica and Colin skipped a chapter on letting go in the parenting handbook and went straight to how to alienate your kids and potentially ruin their marriage. Spoiler alert, it involves a lot of boundary crossing and a complete disregard for privacy. But you know what really struck me about this story? It's a reminder of how money can bring out the worst in people, even in families. We've all heard stories about relatives fighting over inheritances or lending money to family members and never seeing it again. But this takes it to a whole new level. It's like Monica and Colin saw Dylan and Julia's financial independence as a personal attack on their authority as parents. And let's not forget the impact this had on Dylan and Julia's marriage. I mean, talk about a stress test. Most couples argue about money at some point, but usually it's about overspending or saving more. Not many have to deal with their in-laws trying to stage a financial coup. The fact that they came out stronger on the other side is pretty impressive. I gotta say though, my favorite part of the story was the aftermath. Dylan and Julia taking financial planning courses together, setting up a P.O. box for sensitive mail, paranoid but totally understandable, and having those deep conversations about their financial values and goals. It's like they took all that negative energy and turned it into something positive. And can we give a shout out to Noah, Julia's brother, finally stepping up and letting them know their parents were getting help. Better late than never, I guess. But still, where was this guy when Colin was trying to add himself to their life insurance policy? In the end, this story is about so much more than just the money. It's about boundaries, respect, and the sometimes messy process of transitioning from child to adult in your parents' eyes. It's about standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. It's about building a partnership that can weather some pretty intense storms, or a particularly stormy set of parents in this case. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.